So I wanted to talk about unfinished projects today, and I'm not really sure why that's been on my mind recently. It might have something to do with the docu-series that I'm working on. I'm not sure if I've mentioned that on the channel. It probably deserves a whole video on its own to talk about that. But yes, I'm working on a docu-series at the moment. A lot of money and time have been poured into it, and I'm really excited to finish it. But throughout the post-production of this series, I have felt this intense sense of dread inside me every day of like, what happens if I don't finish this project, right? Like, I have a fear of the shame that I would feel in my soul if I didn't finish this project. And, I wasted all of the work that has been poured into it thus far. And it's an irrational fear because I am going to finish this project. I'm excited about finishing it, but shame is not a great motivating, driving desire to finish something, or fear of shame certainly is not. So I've had to remind myself in the past few months, like, hey, you're not making this just because you'll be ashamed if you don't finish it. You're making it because you care about finishing it. And I do. I always think it's interesting to go back to the source of this stuff and try to figure out, why am I feeling what I'm feeling at this point? Where did that start in my life? And, for me, I think maybe the first unfinished project might have been when I wrote a fantasy novel when I was about 12 or 13. It actually was, in a sense, my first finished project because I did finish the book. I wrote like a 600-page fantasy novel when I was a kid, and it took me 2 or 3 years of persistent writing to finish it, and I'm still proud of that achievement to this day. It's not a good book, but I did finish it, and that's been huge. The thing that I still feel shame about is that I was planning to try to get it published, and I never did that. I was planning to make a whole 5-book series about it, and I never did that. And I think, when I look back at that book now, even though I am proud that I finished the first book, there's still a sense of shame inside me of the fact that, like, I wrote that book thinking that I was going to publish it and make a whole series out of it, and then I never did those things. And all I can feel now is a sense of regret and shame, for the fact that that never happened and I never made it happen. I think some of that increased over the years as I had my YouTube channel. And back in the day, I used to do Lego videos, Lego brick films and stuff like that. And over and over and over again, I would announce different things that I was going to do to my subscribers, right? I would say like, all right, I'm going to do the Lego Awards. And, every year I'm going to do a stop motion movie that's like the Oscars, but for Lego brick films. And then I think I made a trailer for that. And then I never even made the first episode, right? I said at one point I was going to finish a whole season of this show that I created called HP1's The Studio, which was a Lego mockumentary series that I was really proud of. And then I never did that. I had all of these other video essays that I announced. I mean, I'm still haven't done that Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs video I said I was going to do like a year ago. And there's shame in that, right? And I'm not really sure why it still lingers over me, but it does. One of the biggest things that has stuck with me for a while is, if you've been around on the channel for a few years, you may remember I announced at one point, I think it was in 2018, that I was going to post a short film that I had made called Paradoxical. And, I sort of hyped it up. I made like a 30-second teaser for the short, and I was going to release it and all this kind of stuff. And that was a short that I made at the end of 2017 when I was still 17. And then, it's been in the editing room ever since then. And the logistics of that project are a little bit complicated. There were reshoots that we needed to do that we never did. There was some rewriting that I wanted to do that I never got the chance to do. And then editing stuff that just turned into more of a hassle than I anticipated, especially since the reshoots never got done that were going to fill in some of the gaps. And so that leads us to the point where we're at now, where I never finished that film. We spent, my film team and I, in high school, we spent probably 6 or 8 weeks every week, sort of, doing a day and filming a part of that film. And everyone was expecting me to finish it. And now I have like a 70% completed film, but it never was quite completed. And I feel a little bit of shame over that, especially over the fact that I announced it and then it never came out. One of the most annoying things about unfinished projects is that whenever you try to go back later on and finish it, you just can't make yourself do that because you can't get back into the headspace that you were in when you were making it in the first place, right? I mean, when I look back at Paradoxical now, all I can see are the problems with the filmmaking. All I can see, is the limitation of my perspective at age 17, the things that I didn't know about filmmaking, the areas in which I was just making it up as I went along. That's all I see when I look back at that footage, and it doesn't feel great. And so, some people have told me over the years, like, hey, why don't you go back and finish it? Maybe you could reshoot some of the scenes now. I mean, it might work. Maybe you could fill in some of the gaps with new things. And I go, yeah, like I would maybe do that, but it's just hard to get back into the headspace that I was at when I was 17, when now I'm 21. And that's why it can be hard to step back into the projects that you never completed, because again, they were created within a you that was totally different than the you today, that didn't know the things that you know today. Over the years, though, and even over the past few weeks, I have been trying really hard to not feel shame over my unfinished projects. I mean, they were years ago. I'm not going to finish them today. And so why should I keep beating myself up about it? I think I used to view unfinished projects as dead ends, right? They were things that I had poured so much time and effort and energy and sometimes money into. And then for what? For nothing, right? If it wasn't finished, then it wasn't worth doing in the first place. And yet now I've tried to reframe my mindset around that to go, no, like, even if I didn't finish that project, I still did learn something from it, right? And looking back at it, even if I had finished it, I still would be cringing at certain things about it. Even if it was finished, it would have represented a me from that time that was different than the me today. And that's okay. That means that I have changed since then and grown. I mean, it's hard, because I think there is often a greater sense of fulfillment from pushing yourself to finish something. But I don't think that sense of fulfillment should cause us to believe that the things that we have not finished are inherently wastes of our time that we wish we could erase. I mean, I guess it's almost like relationships, where just because a relationship didn't end in marriage, just because they weren't the one you were going to spend your whole life with, that doesn't mean that the time that you spent with them was not meaningful, right? I mean, I dated someone else before I met my girlfriend now, and it didn't work out and we were not meant to be together, but the time that we spent together was still meaningful and we did learn something. And it was, something that I'm glad that I experienced. And I think it is the same way with artistic pursuits, where I don't want to beat myself up about projects that I haven't finished. I want to look back at them and think, yeah, even though it wasn't finished, I did learn something from that. The question, I guess, is, and maybe this is a question for myself, how do you allow yourself to move on from an unfinished project once you know that it's not going to be finished? And, maybe a key part of it is talking it out with people. I mean, I'm doing that with the camera right now. But more than anything, I know that I want to be someone who values the time that I've spent creating art, even if that time didn't culminate in a finished product. I mean, the time that I spent making Paradoxical with my friends at age 17, filming things and using a drone for the first time, using a shoulder rig for the first time, getting shots that I was really proud of, writing the script on the day, all of that stuff was beautiful and fun and creative and had a spark of joy that sometimes I don't have in current projects today. And even if it didn't end with being posted on YouTube, I want to be someone who's able to look back and value that time because it was time spent creating art. And art is valuable even beyond the utility of posting it online. That's all I would say. I really want this video to be an open discussion about this stuff. I mean, do you guys, creatives among you, I think all of you are probably creatives in some way. Do you have any unfinished projects that you're still feeling shame over to this day? And what could you do to release that shame in some way? Or look back at the experience and think about the things that mattered about it, or the things that you are still glad that you experienced, even if it didn't end in a finished product. I'm no expert. I'm still trying to do that and figure out how to almost grieve things in a way before I move on from them. But I always think that it's important to do this stuff in community with others, and it can be great to talk about these things in a comment section like this. Anyway, if you've made it this far, thank you so much for just sticking around and listening to all this personal stuff that was not really relevant to you whatsoever. I mean, maybe it was if you have some unfinished projects too, but either way, I am just grateful that anyone would, be willing to listen to me talk for however long I've been talking. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to see the very flawed and unfinished cut of Paradoxical, it's on my Patreon and you can see it there. But either way, thanks for being here.